Get Warrior Tough, Mental Training 101 with Andrew Wittman on 105.5 The Roar. Back to Andrew Wittman.
All right. Back in the saddle. Leadership, mental toughness coaches, Andrew Wittman, Harold Dutch Coleman. Hey, Dutch, let's talk a little bit about this whole thing with Serena Williams that happened, this past little bit here she had the chance to get what was this? Something that hadn't happened. Grand Slam hadn't happened since 1988, I believe, right? Since Steffi Graf, is that?
Yes, actually the calendar slam is what they.
The calendar slam, right?
Yeah, we actually have all the Grand Slams happen in the same season or in the same calendar year. So she's held all 4 titles at the same time before, but she hadn't held them all in the same calendar year.
Oh, cool. So this is kind of like the Blood Moons thing or something, right? I don't even know what that is, but it sounded cool.
The funny thing is, when I first heard that, I thought that was being really picky, because anytime you're holding all 4 of those titles at one time,
yeah,
I'm sitting there like, wow, who cares if it's in the same calendar?
Right.
I have all trophies,
they're all right there. Right.
Yeah, so.
Talk to my agent,
Exactly.
So, all right. So, but anyway, I'm watching this thing unfold, and it's like the chick that beat her was some little Italian. I don't know the name, but because it's like she was, what was it?
Vinci, I think it was
Vinci. All right. So she was like a 300-1 underdog or something, right? Like a ridiculous. Like this was just like we're just going through the motions kind of deal.
Right. We're talking Mike Tyson, Buster Douglas. It was a big deal. Big underdog.
So, and then meltdown.
And it was a competitive match. I thought Serena came and took it back, because in the third set she was actually up 2-0.
Right.
And all credit to her opponent. Her opponent was kicking tail, and you got to wonder how that happens though, because that was a tremendous. I don't have to tell anyone that knows anything about tennis. That was a tremendous surprise. I mean, there's no way that an unseeded, unranked opponent is supposed to beat an all-time champ like that. I listen to Chris Everett, and I listen to Martina, and I listen to some of those that say that Serena's the best of all time. Even without this, she's still the best of all time.
Right.
So when you put that in perspective and say this unseeded player beat her, that's huge. And so you got to think about the mental implications before the match, during the match, and now after the match with a soon-to-be 34-year-old Serena, who's still at the top of her game at age 34.
Right.
But how does a loss like this impact you mentally at this age, knowing that you're looking at that hill and wondering if it's time for you to go down the other side? How does this impact your psyche? Yeah,
and I mean, her mom was quoted as saying that she thought that the pressure was getting to the moment was too big for her. That's what her mom said. Her mom never quotes on either of the sisters' stuff ever. And her coach said the same thing. She just wasn't herself. And so What are your thoughts on that, man? The moment's too big. We see this in the Olympics a lot, and tennis and like golf. There's nowhere it's not a team sport, so there's nowhere to hide. So it's like in wrestling, or MMA or boxing or whatever. Any of these where it's just a single, it's you, and there's nowhere else to hide. The moment being so huge. I mean, what's your thoughts on that, man?
I'm not going to dismiss that it was something mental, but I just cannot agree that the moment was too big, because she had these moments when she was 17. And I know that sometimes you care less when it's there because you're oblivious to how big the moment is. But this was her opportunity to win her 23rd major or something like that. And again, she had held all 4 titles before at one time before. So this is we're talking about calendar days now, whether it's what day of the week it happens on as opposed to another day of the week, because you've held all 4 titles before.
Right.
So that's nothing new. People are blaming it on Drake.
I was going to say, then there's the whole Drake Twitter thing, right? Well, I mean, on Twitter, they were just hammering that guy. I mean,
I would be more inclined to believe it was Drake's fault than the moment was too big for her, despite what her family says, because can the moment get any bigger for someone like this? I mean, she's
all right. So she's been there so many times, right? So this is old hat. So just the stats of, you've done it so many times, we call it the regression to the mean. So she's such a great player that when you regress back towards the mean or being normal, even, instead of always being an outlier, if you just regress back to the mean, we go, oh my gosh, she didn't do it. Is that kind of what you're saying? I mean, it's like, she's done it so many times that give her a break already.
Yeah, and, I think the stat that fell into this loss prior to this, it was something like she was 38-1 in similar instances. which means she's lost before. In an instance similar to this, and I think it was after winning going to a third set where she had to lead. She had only lost one other time in her career.
Oh, one other time. Okay, so now she's got 2. I wish, Dutch, I had stats like that, man. I wish I could say I'd only lost twice.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, so do we go back to that one time she lost before and said, was the moment too big then? Like, what was the reason then? It's just in sports.
Yeah.
Sometimes
stuff happens. And you're right, because I looked at the stats. She actually played pretty well. I mean, it's not like they didn't. She didn't choke.
Right.
There was no choke. I mean, because we've seen. I mean, there have been times where the moment is too big and people do choke. That's not what happened to her. There was no choking here.
Yeah, and she had a lot of errors that were unforced. But again, this is something that's happened before, and when we start attributing to things, see, when we don't understand and we don't know what happened, then we start giving it reasons.
Yeah,
and it makes us feel good. But at the end of the day, we still don't know if maybe her and Drake had an argument that morning, and Mom doesn't even know about it. You love
that whole Drake thing, man. Drake,
it's hilarious.
Oh man, and it was funny because I've read an article. They were like cataloging all the bad things that happen when Drake's around, man. I was man. He's like, what was that? Remember from Flintstones, Bad Luck, Schlep Rock? Yeah, man. That's like Drake's
wowsy, woo,
woo. Drake, sorry, buddy, you're the new Bad Luck, Schlep Rock. All right, so we can't get on. We do have this penchant as human beings to try to figure out, what went wrong. And sometimes life just happens. You know what I mean? It's not that everything went wrong. She just didn't. She came up short. And you know what? What about no one's saying, hey, man, the Italian chick, what's her name again?
Vinci. I think it was Vinci.
Vinci or whatever. She just played awesome, and it was like her day. I mean, we don't say, what about that? What about here's an underdog? We love an underdog. Americans, we love an underdog, except when, they mess up our great pageantry and all that other stuff.
And when they mess up our NCAA brackets.
Right. Yeah, then I hate the underdog. Right? I mean, we're so fickle, man. We are so fickle. The whole country needs our help, man. It's mental toughness 101. Just get it. Right.
But I'm wondering how she is going to look coming back, though, because even at age, she's about to turn 34, and it's still remarkable because her dad said years ago when he didn't give either one of the daughters as teenagers the full pro schedule. And the reason he said was because I want them to have number one, I want them to have other interests in life so they won't be burnt out, so they can have a longer career. They won't get consumed by alcohol and drugs and all the other social ills that a lot of the other really young tennis stars have come. And it's all come to fruition. It's worked perfectly because, you had Venus, who's in the quarterfinals at age 35.
Right.
You have Serena at age 34, who's still in it to win it, and who's won the last 4 majors in a row. And this would have been her 5th major in a row. And so he's done a remarkable job. So I wonder how she's going to perform after this. That's my question.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we have to see it play out, but I don't see it knocking her off. I mean, it's only her 2nd loss. That's not like, oh my gosh, that's it, it's over. I mean, you lost 2, whatever, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, it's amazing. She is absolutely amazing. I marvel at her because I don't want to touch on the whole weight thing. I know women are sensitive about their weights. But she's a thicker athlete. She's a heavier athlete. So I look at the people that she's going up against, and they're these little petite, slight women in some cases because there are other really strong athletic types as well. But the way she moves, I marvel over the way she's able to perform, and I'm just trying to see when she's going to hit that wall, because we all hit that wall. And that's the biggest thing for me is I can't wait to see, and I don't want it to happen, but I want to see how long she can keep this up. I
don't know. I'm just telling you, 34, that's a baby to me, man. She's got plenty of. Now I want to see her and Ronda Rousey, in a grudge match or something. We'll see how that works, right? You're like, no.
No.
All right, so we can't get out of here without we have to broach the subject about the 2 high school kids that hit the ref in the back. And you and we have to talk about this, Dutch, okay? Because this is, again, not just athletics, but I think it's systemic. I think we see this with there's just a thing about of authority figures, and there's just no respect, or there's no boundary, there's no fear of I'll say it like this. If I was a ref and I was in that position, I don't know, every ref out there has got to be looking over his shoulder, man.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate that, we already know referees, they have a very tough job. And I always joke about it on Out of Bounds with Quark. I always say how much I dislike referees. They're all bad, and but the human element is they have a very tough job, and they're going to make mistakes, and they know they're going to make mistakes at some point. We know they're going to make mistakes at some point. But how can you go out there and do that job knowing not only am I going to make mistakes, people are going to possibly physically attack me with those mistakes. I don't want to go out there. I don't want to touch that job. So we have to do things, put things in place to protect these men and women that do this job. And that's why I feel very strongly about this incident, that there has to be some serious punishment involved, not simply because of the kids, but we have to protect the people that do this job so they can go out there without fear of doing the job, so we can still get the best performance or the best effort from these folks. Yeah.
The whole time you're talking, the thing that's going off in my head is cops, man, and law enforcement. And, it's just a whole, it's this, it just seems like it's this, because they're like the cops on the field. Mm-hmm. Now, you listen, I played rugby in high school, and you're played at the higher level in college. It just seemed to you like there was that was a sanctuary on the field, that would be I don't want to say a safe place, but it's controlled combat. So that there's certain rules out there. Yeah, injuries happen, but it's a place where everyone's best intention. That's why we have unsportsmanlike conduct penalties, because that's not tolerated out there, that it should be the sanctity in between the boundaries, Yeah,
well, you're right. And even though they're trying to knock each other's heads off, there's still gentleman agreements within that. There's the respect within that, the integrity within that. So I may be trying to, in boxing, I'm trying to knock your head off, but at the same time, I know I can't throw an elbow and hit you in the face.
Right, and we see this
use my gloves.
Right, you see this in MMA. They'll be beating the hound out of each other and get up and hug.
Right.
And people don't understand that, but this is what an elite warrior. We're high performers, and we really want your best game, and I want the best out there, and I want to beat the best, in order to be the best and reprove myself to myself. And again, it's just respect for that, high performer, even though I know they're not trying to do it with malice.
Right. And the respect for authority, you're talking about the
right.
officers and paralleling that with this. The respect for authority has to be upheld in this country. Now, we know that officials in sports all the way down to amateur level, sometimes they don't perform with the intentions, especially when you go to local sports. You always hear about the stories about the referees being corrupt, wanting a certain team to win and all that. With all that being said, you cannot let lawlessness within anything become the dominant thing, and they have to take care of this with swift justice, with some serious justice, just to keep things in order so that moving forward, officials don't have to worry about this stuff.
All right, it's our last break. We'll be back for the last segment.
A company that has happy employees will be more effective. A company that has employees that know how to deal with obstacles and problems will make more money. A company that gives their employees the tools to make those things happen is the company that turns to Andrew Wittman. Andrew has been teaching leadership, performance discipline, emotional intelligence, critical thinking, and mental toughness for almost 30 years. He's a veteran with combat experience in the Marines and experience as a police officer, federal agent, and security contractor for the State Department. His keynote speeches, half-day, and full-day seminars are engaging, effective, and energizing. Your employees will leave feeling empowered. They'll learn how to foster better communication, build strong working relationships, develop crisis and conflict management skills, and more. Visit GetWarriorTough.com to read testimonials from people just like you. GetWarriorTough.com.